Welcome to the latest episode of DJs in PJs. This week, we're very excited to welcome Kaskade. I don't think he needs an introduction, but I'm going to try to give one anyway. Kaskade has released 11 studio albums, been Grammy nominated 7 times, and was the first DJ with a residency in Las Vegas. He played the Coachella main stage, sold out Staples Center here in LA, and I'm sure some of you have caught his recent set at the Grand Canyon. One of my favorite things about Kaskade is how many people got into the scene because of him. Virtually all my friends who didn't care much for electronic music discovered it through Kaskade. We're going to start out with a 45-minute DJ set, followed by a Q&A. So please submit your questions for Kaskade here on Twitch, and we will try to include them at the end. We also want to thank our friends at IK Multimedia for supplying us with some iRigs, which we're using for the live component of this broadcast. So without further ado, I'm going to hand things over now to Kaskade.
All right. Hey, what's happening? This is Kaskade coming to you live and direct from Santa Monica, California, with only the best in house What's happening? Kaskade coming to your device all the way from California, where there are lots of wildfires. None right here in Santa Monica, but ash on the cars. People going crazy. I don't know. The sky's an odd color. Lots of smoke. Oh, right there. Jet, tell me where the camera's at. Woo! You got me feeling under pressure. You want me to feel real, so give me some time now. I need time now, baby. You want me to be real, but you're blowing it up. You got me feeling under pressure. You just want me to feel real, just give me some time now. I need time now, baby. I don't know, it just feels good to listen to the music loudly again. Your hip, that booty, so fit. My hand, your hip. No shoes, no shirt, no problem. Just shake that naked bottom. The freaks, the hurts, we got 'em. Just shake that naked bottom. I get so lit. My hand, your hip, that booty, so fit. My hand, your hip, no shoes, no shirt, no problem. Just shake that naked bottom. The freaks, shake that naked bottom. Word? I'll house you. 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 I'll house you.
Lars, I know you recognize this sample right here. This one's taking me back. I like it. I've played this one in a few streams, and it just keeps making its way into my playlist. I don't know, I just love it. Makes me feel good. Damn it, we need more of that right now. Come on. All right. All right, I'm gonna play a couple more. And then afterwards, we're gonna take some questions. I'm gonna hang out with the guys from Pioneer. Chit chat, so stick around. Yeah, and if you have any questions for me, just throw them in the comments section there. Right there, get up in there. You're like, hey man, what kind of socks does Kaskade wear? Everybody be like, what? You've never heard? He doesn't wear socks. But you can learn that coming up, all sorts of fun stuff. So hang out. Yeah, hit me in the comments section with what you want to know about. Probably some questions about the CDJ-3000. That just sounds future. We in the 3000s, man.
Around this empty town, 3 a.m., no one around. All the shops are closed and I'm close to passing out. Got a place I ought to be, and someone who's missing me. But my mind, no, my mind can't get you out. I know I'm not supposed to say it, I know I'm not supposed to think, but I got it bad, bad, bad. I know I'm not supposed to say it, I know we can't ever be, but I want it bad, bad, bad.
we both met, painted eyes and silhouettes. I said hi, you said let's go inside instead. How could something feel so right? When it met, we had to lie. All I got now is this pounding in my chest. I know I'm not supposed to say it, I know I'm not supposed to think, but I got it bad, bad, bad. I know I'm not supposed to say it, I know we can't ever be, but I want it bad, bad, bad. Promise.
Maybe I found one more to end on here. Yeah, comments, questions, put them in there.
Turn that beat like
and hang out. We'll chit chat for a minute. Oh man, now there's all this pressure. The last track. I'll find something.
Turn that beat like boom, 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 boom. 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 Boom, 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 boom. Turn that beat like boom, 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 boom. Turn that beat like boom, 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 boom.
last one. Cool it down just a bit.
All the hours seem to fade away when I'm with you. When I'm with you, all my days seem to fade away.
My good friend Colette singing here.
When I'm with you,
Beautiful as always.
when I'm with you, when I'm with you, with you, 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 with you, with you, with you, with you.
All right. I don't know. That's it, man. Playing on the CDJ-3000s, the brand new. Literally, I got them in the mail yesterday, and I hooked them up today. Had a very busy yesterday, so I didn't get to hook them up. Very excited, hooked them up today. And before we did this broadcast, I was just messing around with them for like, I don't know, an hour. Which is funny, because then when I was just spinning right now, I was like, wait, did I play that track, or was that before we started broadcasting? I got a little confused. That happens, man. You know what I'm saying? Little loose, out of practice. Gonna switch over here, gonna take some, questions, hang out with Lars. It's gonna be awesome. All right. So hang tight, this is the best part.
Amazing, amazing. So while Kaskade goes over the couch, I'm trying to get through all the questions. Thank you all for asking so many questions. I hope we can get through all of them. So let me add them in there. Audio 1, 2, can you hear me? Check, check. So while we're fixing audio issues, we got a lot of questions, but I think the most important question we got was from Daniel AAAAAC.
No.
He wants to know what he did with his pants. Does anybody know? If any know, not you, Ryan. No, this is someone who asked a question earlier. So Daniel needs to know what he did with his pants. So if anybody knows what Daniel did with his pants, please leave a comment. Okay, so audio's up. We're good, right?
I don't know. You hear me. I hear you perfectly clear.
I hear you perfectly clear. That sounds great. Well, that was quite a set. We really needed that, man. It's been hot here in California, hot and smoky.
Jeez, dude. You want me to plug it in? I'm holding it too close. All right, I'm getting some instruction here. Lars, if I clip the sound right here, you hear me fine?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, cool. Yeah, it's been hot and smoky, and I don't know, we're dealing with the same thing that everybody else is dealing with. It's nonsense. And then we just threw a fire on top of that.
Yeah, I think we have a lot to talk about. Well, let's talk about the music first.
Yes.
Just tell us a little bit about how you approach your set. Like how did you pick the music? What kind of prep went into it? Like what did you want to play today?
I hope this doesn't disappoint any of you. Basically last night I just made a folder and I was like, okay, cool. Here's the top 30 or 40 tracks that I would like to hear. loudly on this system. I don't come in here every day and play on this. So for me, it's still a treat. I've been taking a lot of time off. So, I mean, it was just cool. What tracks do I want to hear? And then I threw, obviously, some of my newer stuff that I've released over the last 5-6 months, just because I figured a few fans might tune in. And like, I just played all the stuff. I just wanted to hear all these promos that I've been still getting. So I just made a folder and was like, cool, let's just randomly go through this. A couple of those mixes turned out pretty nice.
No, it was a great set. We really, really enjoyed it. Tell us a little bit about how you got started as a DJ. Like, what technology were you using back then? You know, of course, we want to talk a little bit about the technology you were using today, but, you know, to get there, you know, like when you started out, I assume you were playing vinyl, right?
I was playing vinyl. I mean, even one click before that, I think a lot of kids did this probably in the 80s. You know, you make the mixtape where you'd pause and then record, and so you make the compilation tapes for your buddies. That was the first incarnation. Then just started buying records. I grew up in suburban Chicago and just going into the city, going to Gramophone, and I was going out clubbing, and I was like, what are these records? I haven't heard this on the radio, so I just started buying records, more or less as just a fan, right? And then I went to a guy's house who had recently stolen a DJ setup. I'm like, I got some records. You stole these turntables. Let me try and see if I could blend beats. So I started out on records, and then kind of just went through when the whole digital transition happened. For me, that was, it was like one of those happy, sad, bittersweet moments. It was sweet because I was knee-deep in production, and it was hard to be able to if I had an idea and I constructed a song last week and I wanted to test it out at the club, there was no way to do that before kind of this, you guys came out with the first CDJ, and I was really early on that. But then it was also, I say bitter because, I mean, there's something so nostalgic about vinyl and the sound and whatever, but I didn't miss carrying them around and lugging around the records. So I was one of those guys that was, you know, jumped on really quickly onto the digital kind of movement.
But now that you're not traveling as much as you used to, and you're like doing more streams from your studio and that kind of stuff, are you bringing the vinyl back out?
I mess with it, sure. Even just earlier, before we went live, I was just kind of like, I pulled out that old John Ciaphone remix of 2 Months Off, and oh man, it sounds so stinking sweet still. I play it. It's more for nostalgia, though. And I have done a few vinyl sets at Sunsoak. I think it was a year or 2 years ago. I can't remember. At the first or second one, I don't remember. But I did a full vinyl set, and it's a cool, kind of a fun thing to do, you know?
So what was your very first CDJ? Do you remember?
You're going to probably tell me the model number. It was very small. It was like
700.
a square. And then from that, I went to the one that was bigger. But the difficult thing was, back then, the jog wheel didn't do that much. It was just like nudging it. It was still like that CDJ mode. So it was just like, and a few clubs would put them in. And when I first moved to San Francisco, then I was like full on like producer mode. I was putting stuff out. And I just remember with those first few gigs before the 1000 came out, like, you know, that big moment, those prior to that, they were pretty tricky to operate. You had to really be on it. Because I was so used to vinyl, right? To make that leap was like, oh, you're sweating. The whole crowd's like, yeah. And you're like, I am going to screw this up, no doubt about it.
And so then after the 700, the 1000, and then I assume you just 1000 Mark II, 1000 3, 2000.
Yep. I think there was one that was like the bigger square. I don't know if that was before the 700 or after. What was bigger? It's still the same kind of jog wheel. I think that must have been before because it's so much bigger. But
that was the 500, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So went 500, 700, then 1000, and off to the races. Then I've just been like, as soon as it comes out, I'm like, my credit card, 44127675. Send it right now, overnight.
So you just became the first DJ to play on the CDJ-3000s. So obviously I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are. What was that like?
Incredible. I think an analogy that a lot of people will understand. The thing that kind of just jumped out at me, I mean, because I literally unboxed these maybe 2 hours ago, and just have been sitting here messing with them. And just the size of the screen and the brightness, the resolution, this is a big deal. I think it's nice to have that in a dark club, and certainly at pool parties. I mean, the biggest problem at pool parties before this is like, I actually can't see what's on the screen. It was kind of like winging it. And I had been in a lot of situations with it. So that's a huge deal. I kind of jokingly said to Jet before, do you want to watch the Super Bowl on my 19-inch or on my 82-inch down in the theater room? It's like, it feels like that big of a leap forward. The other thing that really jumped out at me that just, I think that a lot of the like nerds will appreciate, in sound file, audio files, it's just the conversion from digital to analog is so noticeably better than anything I've ever heard in this entire market. Absolutely incredible. I think you guys made, it wasn't like, oh, cool. You know, it wasn't like 1,000 to 2,000. Sounds better. 2,000 to 3,000. I'm like, what? Now it's like, you must, if you want me to play there, I'm going to be that guy. You must have the 3,000 because my music has to be heard on the best speakers and best converters. I refuse to play on that 2,000. That might become me here shortly. So that was huge. I really like, I forget what you call it, when you can see the waveform of the other file instead of looking back and forth between the two CDJs. It's right there on the one screen. You have a lot more real estate on the screen. So to have that right there, I don't have to go back and forth between the two.
We're calling it stacked waveform.
Stacked waveform, awesome. Which for the pioneer like CDJ guys, before it had that little, what you guys call that, with the bars and the grid that was
phase meter.
Yeah, sorry.
All good, all good.
Who hired this idiot to do that freaking broadcast? Anyway, so I like that, having the waveform right there. I think that's super handy. I like the fact that I think anyone that's used a CDJ to step over to a new CDJ, it's always a little bit scary, like how much did they change? Really, the interface feels extremely familiar. I mean, dude, I just was on here, 2 hours into this, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. All right, little changes here and there, but subtle improvements. I think the hot cues across the top is really the biggest change, but very handy because it's just right there next to the screen. I actually like that improvement a lot as well. What else kind of jumped out at me? I mean, for me, sound is just on the top of the list next to the screen size and brightness. The fact that the processor is so much faster, that's noticeable. Even when I'm scrolling through things and pulling things up, that is huge. I didn't use it here, but I know it's going to be huge because I didn't get here in time to like get everything dialed in the way I wanted it. But you can preview a track. So I know a lot of the DJs out there are like, what else? Yeah, dude, you can preview a track on the same player that's playing something out. So you just go in, preview, or if you want to hear the end of a track that you're actually playing, you're like, wait, how does that outro go? Does it actually, the tempo slows down, or how does this work? You can jump forward and listen to that. So I think that's super helpful. I don't know, man. Those are some of the biggest things that jumped out at me right away. What other, like, what are you guys super proud of that you guys, what kind of advancements did you make that you're like, damn, that's really cool, man. I'm glad that one came through.
I mean, the biggest one you mentioned is just, we developed a whole new platform for this. And as you said, it's super powerful, right? So that allows us to do, a lot of things now, but it also allows us to really like grow with the platform, allows us to do a lot of things in the future. Like one thing that's super noticeable is loading a track with 8 hot cues is like instantaneous, whereas on the previous player that might take 2 seconds or something like that. Yeah, I mean, it's really
just loading the tracks is instantaneous too. Like I click on it, if I either hit the button or was pushing it, it was just like beep. It's not, that lag isn't there. And I think in those situations where you're like, what am I doing next? Because everyone's been in there. I mean, even 3 tracks ago, I mixed in with like nothing. I just looped that, boom, okay, bring up the next track. Just that speed, faster processor is a big deal.
Yeah, and then it's a whole new platter that we developed, which may not be that relevant to someone who just does pitch bending, but for anyone who like scratches on it, like it's a whole new feeling. It feels super, super smooth, So a lot of effort went into that, and a lot of the techno DJs were asking for the ability to do beat jumps. I know a lot of guys were using Tractor specifically because of the ability to do beat jumps.
Yeah. And
so now, not only can you do much longer beat jumps, for example, you can jump over 16 bars of a track, but hardware buttons for that too. So it makes it real easy. And the hardware buttons are customizable, so it can be a 1 beat jump, 2 beat jump, 4 beat jump, 16 beat jump, whatever. So you can easily customize that, and that really changes the way that you can perform, because a lot, before, if you wanted to do a really long beat jump like that, you had to set a hot cue at the at the end,
right.
where you wanted to land, and so that created a lot of work beforehand. But now you can just say, okay, I'm gonna that breakdown coming up, I'm just gonna jump over the whole thing,
Yeah, when I play these tech house sets and it's like an 8 or 9 minute track, when I'm like, oh, I just want that juicy part in the middle, it's a lot easier to get there. I've been using the beat jump on the 2000 quite a bit. Like when I do the redo sets and when I'm playing like really long stuff, some of those, dude, I'm sure you have a few songs in your collection behind you that are like 11 minutes long, and you're like, yeah, I could get that down to 7 minutes and still make it work, I'm sure, so that helps a lot.
And then another thing is, I know you've been using the DJM V10 mixer a lot lately. You didn't use it today, but I've seen you use it at some of your other streams. That's a 6-channel mixer, and you can now actually link 6 CDJs as well. So with the new CDJ, we upgraded the Ethernet port, so it's 10 times faster than the previous one. And so that allows gigabit, and so that allows you to sync 6 decks now. So you can play from 1 USB stick on 6 different decks and sync it all, and have and you can do all the processing, meaning the master tempo, and you have a key sync functionality now, or you can pitch the key up and down to make sure everything is in key and do all that.
Dude, the software also it highlights what the keys are next to it when I go in there. I don't know if that's a preference I chose or if it's doing it. Am I making that up right now?
No. It shows you what's compatible. Yeah.
Yeah, which is cool. I was scrolling through. I'm like, these are highlighted green because they're compatible. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Pretty soon it will just be a machine up there. Yeah, I like that. Oh, I should also mention, and I don't know what the specs are on this, but the sensitivity of the screen, it's a lot easier to go in and type and move things and grab things. I know because over the years,
it's a pressure sensitive screen, right? Mm-hmm. So that means if your hands are wet because, I don't know, you have a beer bottle in your hand, you put your beer away and then you want to touch the screen, like it's not going to be an issue. Right. With some other products, if your hands are wet or whatever, you may have malfunction, or you may end up selecting the wrong thing or whatever, but with the pressure sensitive screen, you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Super noticeable just in this little session here. So yeah, I mean, a lot of huge leaps forward for you guys. Congratulations. I'm sure this is a big day at the office for you guys. Yeah.
It is. Well, I wish we were in the office.
The virtual office.
I'm working from home now since, mid-March or so? So how has that been for you? The whole pandemic. I mean, I know you had a ton of gigs canceled. I know you had gigs in, I think last time I saw you was the middle of March, and I know you had gigs in I think in Singapore and places like that lined up in April and stuff. And so how's that been for you this summer?
Honestly, I think when COVID first hit, it was terrible and tragic and all this stuff's happening. The world is changing. So it's kind of like dealing with all that information. But for me personally, as it affected my life, it was kind of like I could pause and kind of take a breath and just be like, all right, how can I use this time? I think, I'm no different than anybody else out there. I think at the beginning, it was kind of fun and novel. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Wednesday night. We're going to have another movie night. Okay, kids, load into the basement. We're going to fire up the projector and watch some movies, And it was fun. And I think after a few months of that, I tried to stay positive. I was like, all right, cool, more time in the studio, more time with the family, and, more time to do other things. And then it started to kind of grate on me, as it did everybody else. And I think the trick has been to try and avoid that and not get so down. For me personally, I've spent a lot less time online. I've spent a lot more time just trying to keep busy. Listen, I've been surfing. The last month, I've probably surfed more in the last month than I've surfed in my entire life combined, which is cool. Last year, I got my pilot's license. I've been flying a lot, which is cool. Because I would always do these things in little slivers of time that I found between my shows and studio time. I mean, my job and what I do for work, I hate to call it my job. It's what I love, and every day I'm so grateful to be in the position that I'm in. So I don't want to sound like I'm complaining. I think it was just a really difficult transition, and I'm still dealing with this on some level, to be gone and traveling and out of the house 250, 300 days of the year on the road and all these exotic, crazy locations, writing music and then playing it live with people and having that feedback and that camaraderie and my family on the road, from going from that, completely cutting that off and just turning the page and doing something entirely different. I mean, fortunately, I have an amazing wife and awesome kids and, a lot of other interests that I could spend time doing. But for me, I think it's really about keeping busy, because if I stop and think about it, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to run full speed into this brick wall right here. So, yeah.
So where do you think it's going? I mean, I saw a lot of questions in the chat about are you going to play EDC 2021? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? What is it? What's your feeling? I mean, nobody can predict the future, but just from speaking to your agent and your manager and other artists, what's your feeling for next year?
My feeling for next year, oh man, I think, listen, I know a lot more in these next couple of months. Of course, I pay attention and I read the news and I try to stay somewhat. It's like I can only surf so many hours a day. But I think in our world, because such large groups of people getting together and it is so dangerous, I think we're probably a year, if not longer, away from getting back together again. And that's really tough for me to say. I certainly hope it goes different. I'm definitely one of these guys, a half glass full, half full, glass half full, man, not half empty. I'm a half full kind of guy. But I'm also trying to be realistic as I kind of plan my life. I hope a year from now I'm on the pro surfing circuit.
We all look forward to it.
No, because I'm a really crappy surfer, but I'm like, man, if I have a year to do this, maybe, I don't know. Kelly Slater, hey, phone me up, dude. What's up? I could use some pointers. Yeah, I don't know. I think we're a little ways out, because I feel like in our world, we have to get the vaccine, and then there's people that are, much more at risk than a lot of us and a lot of young, healthy people. So we'd be probably lower down on the priority list, if not at the very bottom, and rightfully so. So I think it's going to take a time once they get the vaccine for it to roll out, and then for people to kind of lift the ban on gatherings. I don't know. So I think we're a little ways away. I don't know. And I think in the beginning of this, I was all, really trying to make the best of it and doing a lot of live streaming, and I've slowed down on that a bit. Just because there's not nearly the satisfaction. I mean, honestly, they're not even comparable. Live streaming's fun, but it's more like I'd almost prefer sitting doing this. I mean, cool, I can sit by myself and play those records, and it's the same thing with the cameras on, kind of. I don't know. Like, they're a very similar feeling to me. I like hanging out with people, and I like interacting with them, and that's why the shows are such a big deal to me.
That actually brings me to a question from the audience. So if you don't mind, I want to jump into some of those.
Yeah.
Jessica DeLake was asking you, what's the future in streaming events? Do you think you'll be doing a ton more of these? What's the future you see down the road?
This is awesome. I'm sure we're recording and archiving this so we can see how wrong I am. I want to preface this with that I'm a person that makes music for a living and goes out and plays it and has a fun time. So my gut feeling is Ryan, Kaskade, whatever, which doesn't mean a whole lot. But my gut feeling is streaming will get more sophisticated, and even in the 6 months that I've been paying attention, it has just gone a long way. I mean, we've ironed out so many things, and that's great, but it just doesn't compare to gatherings in person. So I think for me, this is more of a Band-Aid until it can feel more like a community. I did a Zoom call with about 1,000 fans, and I was like, this is actually closer to that feeling where I could interact with people and talk to them. But when I played music and DJ'd to them, it was still very difficult. It's still me looking at a bunch of boxes, where in a nightclub, it's very visceral, it's loud, it's intense. So to try and I mean, they're just it's like comparing apples and oranges. Like, yeah, they're both fruits, but yeah, they're quite different. So I think it'll continue to get more sophisticated. The sound will get better. The experience will get better. They'll figure out more of a social element. I think the dialogue in the chat box has gotten better. But I mean, but it won't ever be like going and standing on the polo grounds at Coachella and watching some stage, a monstrosity, and having somebody you love walk out there and play a song that you have a connection to.
Well, speaking of Coachella, I have a question here from Jenan Villas 2, and she's asking for your top 3 places that you miss playing at.
Wow. An easier question would be, what's the worst 3 places? But I would never answer that. My top 3, I really enjoy them all. It's hard for me to walk away from a gig. I wish Matt Murray was here because he toured with me for 7 years. Because it's like every night I'd walk away and be like, that was the best gig I've ever played. Oh my gosh, that was amazing. The vibe was crazy. I mean, literally, that's me every night. I'm a very excitable person. So I don't know. What do I miss? I miss going to really interesting places. It goes beyond the gig, because I feel like the gigs have, for the last, I don't know, decade and a half, they've all been so special. If I've developed a global audience to be able to walk into a room in Tokyo and connect with, 3,000 fans. They're there because they heard my music and bought a ticket, and it just ultimately turns into an incredible night, unless I really screw it up. But hopefully that doesn't happen. I miss the exotic dinners in some country that I don't know, that the promoter takes me to because he's like, this is the best place in town, and I miss things like that. Of course I miss the shows. That's on the top list. But to say my top 3, I don't know, man. Of course I'm going to say Los Angeles, because this place, San Francisco, Chicago, New York, Miami, Tokyo, Sydney. Haven't been to Sydney in a long time. I mean, dude, Barcelona has always treated me so incredibly well. I mean, there's so many cities, it's endless. I miss them all.
Jasmine B wants to know whether you're going to do a drive-in show somewhere.
I'm talking to people about doing that, yes. I was kind of waiting to see how that all shook down and how it worked, and see if people could behave themselves, and they actually, like, the execution of them was going to be able to work. because I get promised a lot of things at the front end of a show, and a lot of times they don't always come through that way. So I wanted to see how they go, and it looks like Deadmau5 has done a few now. I mean, there's been quite a few people that have pulled them off successfully just in the last like month or two. So, yeah, I'm eager to listen. To me, like every time the phone rings now, it's like, oh my gosh, somebody's calling me. Like, hey, because the phone used to ring all the time before. Now it's like, what is that? My phone ringing? What is that sound? Is the blender on? Oh, hey, what's up? Now they're like, hey, you can do this or that. Or I'm like, yeah, I'll do anything. Of course, man, I'm all about it.
You just mentioned Deadmau5. So someone was asking earlier whether there's a Deadmau5 collab coming ever again. And then we also had Daniel A. asking whether you would consider doing a collab with Sophie Tucker.
Sophie Tucker have actually been in the studio and sat on this couch that I'm sitting on right now, right before they moved to Miami. I'm friends with them. I admire them. I think their music's wonderful. Hopefully something will come out of that. We've tossed a few ideas back and forth, but no magic has happened yet. Sophie Tucker, if you guys are out there watching, what's up? I hope life in Miami is wonderful. And yes, I need to be bugging you more. And let's get that cooking. As far as Joel and I can say this here, why not? We had some really cool stuff planned for 2020, Joel and I did. And oddly enough, we were talking a little bit more right before COVID happened. Then COVID happened. I think all of us kind of like, we're dealing with that. And I haven't talked to him since, but yeah, we'll collab again for sure, man. Yeah, it'll happen. I might have to they probably won't let me in Canada. They're like, you're from Los Angeles, get that. Put up the wall. Like big piece of plexiglass in front of Joel.
You may need to wait another year before this.
Nah, but
American.
I'm sure something will happen. I'll keep bugging him.
That's great. I know a lot of your fans would really look forward to that. Here's an interesting one. This is from Sean Teen Win. Can you talk about your visual production, your approach? Do you use the same team?
My approach, this is good. I love this question, and I'll give you the shortest long answer I'll try and squeeze this in. So I do kind of like to punch the air a little bit and raise my fist and say, yes. In 2009 at EDC, I was the first person to show up to a major festival with my own visual production team. In fact, it was so new at the time that they didn't even know what to do. They were like, what do you have your own? You're going to run your own screens? That was in 2009. This was actually unheard of. The only time it had been done is with Daft Punk at Coachella, which was a big moment for everyone. But that was more or less like a movie that they were performing in front of. I was trying to kind of mesh the art of DJing with custom visuals. And that started, it was a long journey. It's been an 11-year journey. And really in the last 3 or 4 years, things have really progressed as the technology's kind of caught up. Typically how it happened, well, in 2009, what I did is I just posted on a board, does anyone do this? And I connected with Mike Burkoff, King Drippa. And I actually posted a clip from 2009 EDC of him and Lauren Cronk VJing, which was a word back then, but nobody knew it, my set. And people are like, whoa, you look a lot different. I'm like, no, those are the guys running my visuals in 2009. We had to bring our own, servers in and this whole thing. So I ran an ad. He was just graduating college. He was an animator. And I was like, you're awesome. Stylistically, we actually meshed really well. And typically what would happen is I'd finish a song and I'd send it to him and I'd be like, hey, this is the concept of the song. And I don't like, hey, you're sad and driving away. I don't write songs like that. My stuff is very much more about the emotion and kind of a little more touchy-feely outer space kind of thing. I don't like to be so precise and say it directly. So he understood that, and I'd be like, hey, this is the vibe. And he'd come up with stuff. He'd shoot me a couple ideas, and then we'd go from there and expand on that idea. And it became the very first versions of the software. It was all beta stuff that he was running. And what he would do is he traveled with me a lot back then. For the first 7 or 8 years, he was pretty much at every gig, even if he wasn't performing with me, because he would just hear me play these sets. Because I was just, I mean, back then, it's like, dude, I'm choosing one of 300 songs, 200 songs, whatever. My sets were so wildly all over the place. But he started to understand like my thought process a lot more. So then we slowly started to build a catalog of music that I had visuals that went with that, and started to expand on that. And then he started hiring more people. And then we just kind of grew from there. He doesn't travel with me anymore. Because his business grew. So after people saw what I was doing, Diplo, like every DJ in the world was calling this guy, because they were like, how does Ryan do that? What is he doing? What's happening? Not only was Mike extremely talented, it was just unheard of in this space to do that. Yeah. And there's a lot more to that story, but that's kind of the short version there.
No, that's really interesting. It's and I'm sure a lot of people have been wondering about that because, watching, your Coachella show or big EDC shows or whatever, a lot goes into that. A lot of planning, a lot of pre-production and stuff. So let's do 2 more questions. This one is from Skyfire Etsuko. What's your favorite food?
Oh, man. What day of the week is it? It's a Thursday.
If it's PJs and PJs, it's Thursday.
I eat a lot.
By the way, where's your PJ?
Oh, man. Dude, you're like, hey, you got PJs? I'm like, am I the only guy who sleeps in like an oversized T-shirt? Or if it's cold out, I throw a sweatshirt on? I mean, I wouldn't have pants on.
I had to buy this when we came up with the concept for DJs and PJs. I didn't have this either.
I mean, I could take my pants off and make feel comfortable, but then this will probably get flagged and taken off the internet, and that'd be a bad thing.
Yeah.
What was it about? Oh, I love Mexican food. My wife makes amazing Mexican food. My wife's an incredible cook. Naomi is just like pretty much whatever she makes is my favorite. But I do eat a lot of Mexican food. I lived in Tokyo for a couple of years, so I love Japanese food.
I think you just won the husband of the year for that comment.
Naomi, are you watching? She's not.
Busy with the kids. And final question, and this one is from our friends Sleepy and Boo. They want to know what arcade game is in the corner.
I have 4 pinball machines over there. A Buck Rogers, that's a 1979. These are pinballs, 4 pinballs. Then a Space Station, Space Invaders pinball, and my favorite is Whirlwind over there. Then I've got Moon Patrol, Centipede, Galaga, Donkey Kong, and Mrs. Pac-Man. These are all original boxes except for the Moon Patrol. I couldn't find a freaking Moon Patrol anywhere. So that one's a recreation, but everything else is original that I thrifted out and found.
So where does this obsession with arcades come from?
I don't know. Did you guys have silver spoons? Do you remember that? Do you remember that show? Ricky Schroeder, when we were kids. I don't think this is the obsession, but I'm just going to make this up, have it be my answer right now, because I've talked about this with a few people. There's a show called Silver Spoon or Silver Spoons or something. Ricky Schroeder in his house had like a full arcade. And I was like, what? That exists? There are kids who have arcades in their house? This is crazy. I want to be that guy. And now I'm living.
You have a merchandise line named after it.
That's right.
Okay, we're going to wrap it up. It's 3:34 here on the West Coast. This has been a long interview. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for being on our show. Much appreciated. It's an honor to have you be the first DJ on our brand new player. And yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in. Be sure to follow us. If you're watching this for the first time, follow us. There's a link down there where you could follow us. So please do. And we'll be back soon with another DJs on PJs. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thanks again, Ryan.
Thank you.